Hi, Rob Bowron, and welcome back. We're back after my trip to LA last week. Excited to keep rolling through the previews of the 2023 football season for Sharp College Football. I'm Rob Bowron, the econometrician behind Bowron, an advanced stat system for college football. In these previews, if this is your first time tuning in, we're going to run through this preview from an advanced stats perspective. So as you're going through here, most of the stats you're going to see are from Bowron. There are all controlling for opponent, field position, tempo at the very least. There are also some advanced-ish stats I'll call out in here and point out. I'll point out why I'm using them, why I think they're still useful, even though they're not perfect, and what they're controlling for. I do want to call out with these stats, because we are controlling for opponent, field position, tempo. I want everyone to, sort of at least make an effort to get past points per game. At the very least talk about points per drive. Even though that at least controls for tempo, you're not controlling for opponent or field position in with that, but you're at least making more of an effort to actually get to, a more objective measure. Anyway, as we go through here, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. If you manage to make them, to not use the generic internet tone of kind of being snarky, I will make an effort to not be snarky back. So I do try to make an effort not to be snarky back in general, though sometimes I think people mean to be more in good faith when they're posting things. I just think we're so used to writing things as if we are jerks on the internet. So you don't have to be. I don't have to be. You can just write that you disagree or you have a question. Anyway, as we go through here and we run through the advanced stats, you should get a good idea of what Tennessee is really good at, what they're not good at. I am not a Tennessee beat writer, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I don't know everything about the recruits that are going to step in. And I say this, or, the guys that are kind of come in and fill in on the depth chart. And I say this because I think a lot of fans get very excited. Part of the fun of the off season is getting excited about guys that you're hearing about in spring football, that you may have gotten a glimpse of in the spring game, or maybe got to see in some time where you're excited about a recruit that's kind of finally hit the field. That's fine. I don't want to knock that. I just want to be clear. That is true of your team. That is true of every single team in FBS football. Probably also in FCS football, probably also in high school football. Unless for what's over with the recruiting, but I do want to say, I say that as I'm not here to preview that. If you want that level of preview, I highly recommend finding your local newspaper, and finding the beat writer associated with that. They probably have a podcast, because they amp up for the college football season, that will do exactly that. That will give you the kind of in-depth local coverage you're looking for. I'm here to walk you through what your team was good at, talk about coordinator changes, talk about scheme changes that may come with those coordinator changes. And what's your likelihood of improving, right? Based on what we know, who's coming back from a returning production perspective, overall, that kind of thing. I am not here to tell you that some transfer that didn't play at another school who's now transferred to your school is going to be the breakout or not. Honestly, sometimes that's a bit of a guessing game. and it is a bit of a guess. Even your staff might be high on a guy they think is really going to work out, and then you never actually see him hit the field in the fall. That also happens too. Anyway, so I'm excited to run through this Tennessee preview. I think because Josh Heupel, the Tennessee head coach, I think is one of those great stories in college football. And I say that because, very often we see people in college football who are unwilling to change. It can be a sport where people are hidebound into what got them where they are. And they are often unwilling to, make the changes to become really successful or to move forward, unwilling to do the sort of hard self-assessment that might require, and then put in the work to make, the self-assessment that you've come up with and put it into practice. Heupel did that, and that's amazing. And I think interesting, right? Like Heupel, famously flamed out as the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Definitely took that to heart. Went and learned the Art Briles offense, has his own sort of tweaks and modifications on it, and has generally completely turned around his career, and gone from being the guy that was just sort of thought of as like the former player that, got the shot to be the OC at his alma mater to like possibly the best offensive coordinator we currently have in college football. Because nobody's other than Georgia last season, and Georgia definitely has a different talent advantage over what Tennessee had offensively, as well as when they played, Tennessee had to go against Georgia's defense. Georgia got to go against Tennessee's defense. Bit of an advantage there for Georgia. But Heupel, is really consistently putting up good numbers. And it's something like, it almost feels, and this is different to say than you would for another team. It feels more plug and play with his system and what he's got going. I feel confident that Tennessee is going to put up really big offensive numbers this season, even with the personnel losses they have. That's not something you can say about everybody. But not everybody also has like the kind of continuity Tennessee has on staff. All right, Tennessee sits number 10 overall at coaching and development. They've done a pretty good job, and coaching and development, of course, is a measure of sort of a residual, what's left unexplained in the prediction model that is team specific. Part of what is it tells you is that Tennessee has had some production losses in the past, and they've largely been able to recover from them. They've outperformed their recruiting in recent years. They've outperformed their returning production in recent years, and they've outperformed with how good they were the prior year in recent years, all of which tells you that Tennessee's doing a pretty good job in this turnaround. And so their coaching and development numbers have risen quite quickly in response. They're number 74 in returning production. These are Bill Connolly's returning production numbers. They're taken into account returning players from the prior season as well as transfers. It's not perfect. I don't know that we'll ever get to a perfect way to measure transfers. It's not bad. It's what we've got. Maybe someday we'll get to a better one. If anybody has like a better number, I'm willing to try it. I just need it going back a couple of years. It's a time series model for the prediction. So they're at number 19 overall in recruiting. This is one I think that for Heupel, look, his offense is darn good, and he may not need to recruit at a top 10 level in order to cause people problems. You can't say that about everyone. But Heupel might be a little bit of the exception to how many blue chips you need in order to cause catch Alabama or Georgia. I'm interested to see it. I think Tennessee can recruit better than where they sit in their number 19 in their 2-year rolling recruiting average. But I don't know, like I said, Heupel is, I think, going to be able to consistently put up the really big offensive numbers. They've started to do it. They made significant progress in year 2 under Tim Banks as the DC. I think there's some real reasons to feel positive about this program, even though I do think they are underperforming a little bit in recruiting. Number 1 in special teams overall last season. That's one to keep an eye on. Just sort of hard, if they're going to want to perform at the top level of college football, be the dark horse, maybe get over the Georgia hump this season, they're going to need to be as good as the special teams as they were last season. Overwhelmingly, the most important thing in special teams, I repeat this every single video because people get it stuck in their head that special teams is about, a really big special team score is about that one punt return for a touchdown that you remember. And it's just not. Punt returns for touchdowns or kickoff returns for touchdowns are incredibly rare. Giving them up or getting them is more a matter of luck than anything else. What really matters is kicking field goals. This is not the NFL. There's a wide disparity in how good college kickers are. So having a good one tends to matter a lot. Tennessee's going to have to continue that into this next season. Let's go ahead and hop into the offensive and defensive splits. So offensively, Tennessee was number 2 overall last season. Josh Heupel, of course, is your offensive coordinator. Tennessee, I mean, look, they were just terrific offensively last year. The only time they really ran face first into a wall, I mean, a little bit against South Carolina, a little turnover prone in that game. But where they really, I mean, was the Georgia game, you know. Other than that, really, really good year. They were number 2 overall in drive efficiency. This is a measure, and they were, I should say 2. They were one of only 2 offenses right behind Georgia to get over the 2 mark in beta rank, having a beta rank score over 2. Sort of what we would, you know, in the last couple of years have called like a big offense. Like there's a significant gap between where Georgia and Tennessee were offensively last season and say even where number 3 Ohio State was. Tennessee, found a way to put up some really, really big numbers last year. Number 2 in drive efficiency, they were able to sustain drives, put together long drives to put up points, regardless of field position. This is a measure of your play calling and your execution. This is a really solid number for them. Number 3 overall in explosive drives. Like they were a very, very explosive team last year. As of course, I'm sure everyone remembers, Tennessee was a very explosive team. That's water is wet a little bit if you watch some Tennessee games. Number 1 in play efficiency overall. This is outside of explosives, your yards per play. It's the least important of the core 4 beta rank metrics. Again, like all of these are controlling for opponent, field position, and tempo. Play efficiency also excludes explosives. It is looking for on your very normal plays, how well are you doing putting up yards. Tennessee was excellent at that last season. They also avoided negative drives, avoiding 3 and outs, avoiding turnovers largely. They did a very good job of taking care of the ball, having a plan when they get on the field, not letting the defense do bad things to you. What's interesting, I think, is like in Heupel's first year, they were a run first team. They were a really explosive offense. They were at number 4 and 21 overall. This is a really good offense, even the prior year when Heupel had just taken over. But he flipped it. I mean, they were like, and this is one of the things that I think makes Heupel interesting and unique is his ability to just take his personnel and say, all right, what do I got? And how does it fit this scheme? And it's flexible enough, and he's flexible enough to be able to figure out how to put up points. They were a run heavy, really solid run team the prior year, sitting around 25 overall in effective pass. This past season, they flipped that. They were number 2 overall in effective pass, number 12 in effective rush. I think again, like speaks to the flexibility of the system overall. Hendon Hooker was your QB last season, 69.6 per or completion percentage, 9.5 per. That's excellent. I mean, completing almost 70% of your passes and still getting the ball down the field to the click of 9.5 per is outstanding. I think the one thing as we come into this next season to think about is and Joe Milton has an absolute frickin' cannon. That's my official opinion about Joe Milton is that he has an absolute howitzer for an arm. The one thing about Milton is that I want to see with him not in garbage time, not mopping up in this offense, running it full time, is I'd like to see the completion percentage, because that's going to be the thing that's going to, as we look at their drive efficiency, their ability to sustain drives, sitting at number 2 there. I think they're still going to be an extremely explosive offense. I do not doubt Milton's ability to get the ball down the field. I'm just interested to see where his accuracy numbers are as a full-time starter. They had 2.93 line yards last season per Football Outsiders. This is an advanced-ish metric. It makes an effort to try to provide some relatively objective measure of how much of the yards per play, yards per rush we can assign back to the offensive line as opposed to the running back. They did a pretty good job here at 2.93. That put them at number 17 overall. They had a 5.9% sack rate. That put them at number 57 overall. Now, sacks are more of a quarterback stat than they are an offensive line stat. And that does tell you that Tennessee, unsurprisingly, was often looking to get the ball down the field. And Hendon Hooker was holding the ball, looking to get the ball down the field. It is something you could pick up a little bit on your negative drives number by avoiding sacks. You could pick up a bit on your drive efficiency number by avoiding sacks. Things that could make this offense even better coming into next year. Now, they are at number 94 in Bill Connolly's returning production. That's 57% coming back. I'm going to, if you've watched these videos before, the offensive returning production numbers are more correlated than defensive for the next year's offense or defense. Defense is more correlated with recruiting. All that said, I still expect Tennessee to put up really big offensive numbers next season because I think Heupel he's got this system nailed down. I think he understands the adjustments that he needs to make. And I think these guys are just going to be good offensively. I have that much faith in what Heupel's doing. I'm interested to see if they can get above 2 again, or if they just sort of hover around it. I don't expect them to fall all that far back. And I think in particular in a year where Mike Bobo is taking over at Georgia and Tommy Rees is taking over at Alabama, and of course Brian Kelly is still Brian Kelly at LSU, all of a sudden you're looking around the SEC and the guys in Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, who, if you're looking back to like 2019, put up some really big offensive numbers, like when Sarkisian was at Alabama, and Monken was at Georgia. And now it's been a couple of years. I mean, O'Brien did not set the world on fire at Alabama. And now Mike Bobo's back at Georgia, and Bobo was okay as Georgia's play caller. He's just not in the same league as Monken. All of a sudden, Tennessee might be the only sort of like really big offense in the SEC. That makes this a really interesting team. Even as we flip it over to talk about the defense, they still have a lot of work to do, I think, to catch up to the top teams. So on the defensive side of the ball, they were at number 23 overall last season. I like to grade Power 5 teams, like let's say last year it was a 1 to 65 scale. It's a 1 to 69 scale this year. But on a 1 to 65 scale last season, Tennessee was like a, sunny side, a middle of the road Power 5 defense, right? Like 23 overall. Now, I do want to point out, now Tim Banks is your defensive coordinator. I think Tim Banks is doing a really good job. They were at 52 the prior season. This is showing some pretty significant improvement. I think the proof will be in the pudding this year, because if Tennessee is going to make that jump, it's going to have, the offense is not going to get much better than they were last season. It's going to have to come. The defense is going to have to get into that top 10 range. Can they make that jump this season? I think if there's sort of an existential question about like what do we need to see from the Vols? Everybody's going to talk about Joe Milton. I think they're going to be fine on offense. It's this defense. Like, keep an eye on this defense. That's going to tell you how far the Vols are going to go and whether they're really going to be dangerous against Georgia or Alabama this coming season. The drive efficiency number, you could put together some drives to put up points against them, number 29 overall. Explosive drives, all of these are scaled to the offensive number. So like 1 here is like if you scaled it to the offense, because in modern football, it's an offensive sport. The offense, even going against the very best defense, is still going to be able to put up points. That is the world that we live in. Tennessee finished at number 23 in explosive drives. They have some work to do. These are two of the most important, numbers in beta rank. They need to find ways. The offense is their offense, in particular the drive efficiency number, because their offense is almost always giving them good field position. So their offense is scoring a lot of touchdowns. Tennessee should have really good field position defensively. They need to use that to their advantage and find ways to get off the field. It would also help if they could improve this explosive drives number, cutting down on the number of big plays that they are giving up. They had a decent play efficiency number overall at 22, limiting the yards per play outside of explosives that they gave up. Again, though, it's the least important of the core 4 beta rank metrics. Number 30 in negative drives. They did a this is very middle of the road. They did a decent job. And comparatively too, they did a decent job, forcing 3 and outs, forcing turnovers. They need to do more of that. Now, Tennessee does have a big run pass split. They were number 13 in effective rush, number 41 in effective pass. Effective rush and effective pass is not calculated at the margin for the offense, because the offense has choice, and you want to know what the offense does well amongst what they choose to do. Now, Tennessee, on the other hand, are on the defense. We care about the margin because the defense does not have choice on whether they don't get to choose whether the offense is going to run the ball or pass the ball. So it's calculated at the margin. Tennessee was much better against the run than they were against the pass last season. Tennessee's defensive statistics are it really might come down to them to fixing the pass defense. They're going to need to generate better pass rush. They're going to need to be better in coverage. That is going to make or break this team this coming year, is where they sit. Now, I always think it's dangerous. I think fans often do this, and I mean, not just fans, people often do this. They tend to look at, like what was good about a team and sort of hold that static as well. And then take what was bad about a team and say, oh yeah, we'll improve. So they're going to need to hold this defensive effective rush number in the top 20 as then cut their defensive effective pass number in half. They're going to have to make a significant jump defending the pass without losing much against the run. Interested to see if they really have the players to do that. But again, like they've made significant improvements under Banks, like his first season, they weren't great. They made a pretty good step up from being a very bad Power 5 defense to even being a slightly better than average Power 5 defense. I think they have, some more headroom to improve, but you can see where they need to improve most is stopping the pass. They were at 20 on disruptive plays last season, 27% of the time. That graded out number 20 overall. And they weren't bad. The 34% on third down, number 22 overall. All of these numbers tell you that they were somewhat this is a pretty decent defense overall. They just likely need to clean up the pass defense. They're number 43 in returning production per Bill Connolly, 69% coming back. Let's go ahead and flip over and take a look at the schedule. Tennessee only plays 11 FBS games, so add 1 for their FCS opponent. They get a Virginia team that's definitely struggling under the new coaching staff. I think they've got some significant work to do before they really come back and surprise anyone. Tennessee should be I think this 25 points feels about right for this game. I don't expect, unless Tennessee turns it over 4 or 5 times, for this really to be in trouble. Tennessee is going to be at Florida this year. Florida gets a new defensive coordinator in. The offense really clicked for Billy Napier. I mean, compared to the defense this past season, the defense actually was a little bit of his secret sauce at Louisiana. Got a new defensive coordinator coming in to try to make the defense move faster and improve faster. I think this is still a tough matchup for Florida, though, even if we do expect some defensive improvement. But it will be an interesting matchup to get our first real gauge of where Tennessee's defense sits. I like this matchup in particular because, like, Florida under Napier is more effective running the ball, but I do expect him to try to develop more of the passing game coming into this year. Let's see where Tennessee sits coming into this one. Look, it may turn out that Florida is, again, a dominant run team under Napier. That's going to run right into the teeth of what Tennessee does well, or at least did well last season. This will tell us whether Tennessee's run defense is as stout as it was last season, and give us some idea of where they sit, defending the pass. UTSA had a pretty fun offense the last couple seasons. They have to replace their offensive coordinator coming into this year. Tennessee should be a pretty good favorite in this game. 17 feels about right. But if Tennessee's really clicking, this could be up to like 24 by the time the game kicks off. South Carolina, I like parts of the coaching staff that they hired. I'm not sold on the offensive coordinator at South Carolina. I don't think that this offense is going to take a big step forward. I think Tennessee can avoid tripping over their own feet in this game, unlike last season. I think 17 feels about right for this game. This A&M game is interesting. Bobby Petrino comes in as the new offensive coordinator at A&M. If he's got enough of a leash, and that is probably one of the big open questions in college football coming into the season. Petrino, for all of his myriad personal failings, remains an excellent play caller, and would likely turn around what has been a moribund Texas A&M offense under Jimbo Fisher. It simply lacked explosiveness. Petrino could likely unlock that. I still don't think DJ Durkin is the kind of defensive coordinator you need at Texas A&M, yet he remains there. This is an interesting game. I mean, like, by the time this game comes around, I do think, you could be talking about this closer to 7 points for Tennessee. And if Petrino's got them humming a little bit, this could be below a touchdown. This will be an interesting game to keep an eye on here. Alabama, Tennessee is a very slight favorite over the Tide coming into this season. I think Alabama, even though this game is at Alabama, I'm not sold on Tommy Rees as an offensive coordinator. I know there are some folks that watch tape that like what Tommy Rees does I just have not seen it in the numbers when he's been the offensive coordinator, whether Brian Kelly is there or not. That Notre Dame has been very efficient, in particular to how well they recruit and putting an offense out on the field. I thought it was an interesting hire. It's not one that I think is going to turn things around from where Alabama was with O'Brien. And Alabama does have some significant personnel losses on the defensive side of the football as well. I do like the Kevin Steele hire at defensive coordinator. I thought that was a really smart hire by Saban. Alabama should improve defensively off of where they were last season. But this game, I think, is going to give us this. Look, Alabama's got a ton of talent. I think Tommy Rees, could be fine. I expect him to probably fall right in the O'Brien range as an offensive coordinator. And I think that if you're, if you're Tennessee, we're going to find some things out about the defense here, just as we will against A&M. I would still I think it's about right to have Tennessee as a very slight favorite in this game. This Kentucky one is really interesting to me. They bring back Liam Cohn, Devin Leary, their offensive coordinator that really shined with them in 21. Then he went off to be the offensive coordinator of the Rams in the NFL in 22, and that did not work out, but now he's back. I like bringing in Devin Leary. I think Kentucky has a chance to make big offensive progress. Now, they did make a jump defensively last season over where they had been sitting. Mark Stoops, of course, is a very good defensive coordinator in his own right. He's not calling plays, though. It's Brad White. I think Kentucky has a chance to sort of be a little bit under the radar. And, if so, this game, I think Tennessee can beat their projection at number 7. Kentucky, I think, can also beat their projection at 21. Maybe this is closer to 4, maybe 5 points by the time it kicks off. Tennessee and UConn, I don't know. Jim Mora has made UConn less of a doormat. It's hard. Let's not say respectable, but less of a doormat. Tennessee should be a massive favorite in this game again. Missouri, Missouri's an interesting one here. I think that they've made some strides here. I think they made some strides in recruiting. I still think they're going to be a bit off of where Tennessee is. I think 10 points feels about right for where this one sits. Tennessee is projected as an underdog to Georgia at home by about 11 points. I'm not sure Georgia's offense is going to be able to hang with Bobo now calling plays. And I'm interested to see. I do think Georgia's defense is going to largely be fine. Glenn Shulman is a really good defensive coordinator, of course, and I think they've sort of got that side of the ball really clicking. It will be interesting if the offense falls back a little bit. They might need, like they had in 21, they might need a defense that's one of the best defenses that we've ranked in beta rank to make up for that shortfall. If they do, then this will sort of be around that 10-11 point mark, and I think that's pretty fair. If they don't, this one could be closer to 4. Tennessee gets a little turnover luck, or their defense is better, or their offense is a little better than we're projecting, and this game could be closer to even. Vanderbilt is a long, long way from being respectable within the SEC, and I don't expect that to change coming into this year. Yeah. All right. So that's it. That's the Vols. Like I said, from an advanced stats perspective, I am not here to tell you that the sophomore defensive end who's now stepping into the depth chart to fill that role is going to be a breakout star. That's not what go find your local beat writer for that. What I am here to do, as I said, is walk you through what they did well, what they need to improve on, and I hope inform you as you go back and think about and listen to those podcasts about who is stepping in and what the expectations might be. Arms you with different sets of information than you're going to find elsewhere about college football, and gives you a different perspective and how to think about things. Anyway, I'm really excited for this Tennessee team. Like I said, I think Heupel's one of the better stories in college football, as somebody that actually sat and thought about why it didn't work out and didn't blame everybody else for it, and went and worked at it and tried to improve. And that, to me, is always something worth following and being interested in. Those kinds of people, those kinds of that make those kinds of calls. That's those are my people. Anyway, I'm excited for this Tennessee team. I think they have a chance to be a dark horse in the SEC East, just like they were last season. A team that I think has a chance but as you look through that schedule, there's a lot of games where Tennessee is favored by, a possession-ish, maybe 2-ish. Tennessee is going to have to either not slip up, or the offense is going to have to really perform at a very high level again, and the defense is going to need to take that step forward. I do think last season across the SEC, in large part, and look, the Vols, the Vols had some really good games last year too, but they also, Kentucky was really down. The SEC East outside of Georgia and Tennessee was, not great. I think there is some chance for some more bounce back coming into this year. That might make this a little bit more of an uphill road for them. But again, as we've talked about with these teams in this range, Tennessee is a team, Tennessee is, as we've run through, of like Ohio State or, Florida State or Texas, teams that have some really good offensive coordinators that could maybe put up some really big numbers. The most recent team that we've talked about who has the same offensive coordinator that they've had, who has done it, is Tennessee. And they did it last season. Everybody else is either trying to get back to where they were at another school or trying to get back to where they were from a couple of years ago. And Tennessee just did it last year. I tend to have a little bit of faith that, if there's somebody that can go out and put really big offensive numbers up again this year, it's the Vols. It is going to depend on the defense. They need to get into that sort of at least within the top 12, hopefully within the top 10. They do that and they're really cooking with gas potentially. So if you're a Tennessee fan or just want to see where the Vols are going to shake out, try to get a sense of where their pass defense sits. That was their absolute weakness last year. Try to get a sense if that's improved as we come through the first couple games of the season. Anyway, let's do the run through. Again, I'm Rob Bowron, the econometrician, economechicken behind Bowron, an advanced stat system from college football. It's built on the same data from the folks that provide data to the College Football Playoff Committee. You can find me at BetaRankFB. I will try to answer questions there as well, although Twitter is kind of a hellscape. So I don't know, I will try to get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. You can also find me at Sharp College Football on Twitter. We have a Pac-12 podcast at 12 Pack Radio. And you can find all the back episodes of that at sharpcollegefootball.com/12 Pack Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next up is Alabama, a team that I'm sure no one will be mad that I've not sold on the Tommy Rees offensive coordinator hire. Anyway, I'll try to get that one out, another one out this week and maybe another one after that. I'm going on vacation to Wyoming, the homeland. Go see some real mountains. Week after next for the 4th of July week. I will not be doing remote team previews. So I'll try to get through that, and that'll set me up with at least getting through number 9, which might let me get through the top 20 before the season starts, maybe even the top 25. So we'll just plan to get Alabama out this week.